Hey everyone, it's Kristen Gladhill here for our, well, not our Transformation Tuesday, but we are going to do an impromptu Facebook Live with an incredible doctor who's an oncologist who I work with, and she has had some wild testimonies, you guys, with folks and herself that she has introduced our clean eating plan to. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear these testimonies for yourself. And one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about sharing what we are promoting to folks is really because of my personal history with breast cancer. My mom had it, two of my mom's sisters have had it, and I actually tested positive for the BRCA2 gene several years back. So I've committed the last 6 years of my life to learning about how to be on that preventative side and doing all of the things I can today to live a long, healthy life. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear this. If I personally have asked you to take a look at this plan, or Kris herself has asked you to take a look at this, I would highly encourage you guys to get your questions and concerns answered. Be curious, want to know more, and learn how you can, feel and look better yourself. If not now, do it in the new year. So excited to turn it over to you, Kris. Hope this works. Can everyone see her?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
As long as they can hear, I can go ahead and kind of tell them as short as I can my story. I've been in medical field since 1990 and have taken care of oncology patients the whole time, but I'm a radiation oncologist. And probably about 25 years ago, I began to have a lot of issues, which I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and I lived with that until just the last 6 months or so. But my sister-in-law is Stacy Gast, and she lives in Germany. And this summer when she came to visit, she brought one of the sample packs of the protein and kind of trying to put the catalog towards me and goes, "These are all gluten-free." And I was like, okay, that's good because I can't do gluten. Gluten is one of my triggers for my fibromyalgia. It was the only trigger I knew of. And so I was able to, try the kit, and I taste tested everything. And I also, along with my cancer patients, I have a kind of a weight loss clinic because most of them gain weight during the time. And I was kind of pushed into finding ways for them to help lose weight. So I'm taste testing it for, my cancer patients, and I'm feeling better and better. I did it in August and was still doing it in September. Really feeling great. Like my energy was better. The fibromyalgia points were getting better. If anybody knows anything about fibro, you have trigger points and you have muscle tenderness. And you feel like you have the flu all the time. And then one day, my sister and another lady that we messaged her had sent me a video on a lady who had breast cancer, and she told her story, and I suddenly realized that it was not for the weight loss group at all. This was for my cancer patients. So here we were the last week in September, and I'm driving into work, and I'm like, we're going to do this. We're going to send out an invitation to all our cancer patients and invite them to come in and do a month on the clean eating with the Arbonne kit. And, I've found a guy that can do all the clean meals for them. They won't have to cook. They won't have to go to the grocery store. It'll be a month. We'll draw all their labs before, and we'll draw it again at the end. That was an eye-opener. 50% of those ladies had pre-diabetes and did not know it. A quarter of them, their cholesterol was horrible. And so they all started. I had my whole crew do it as well. We had a couple people that were diabetic that we found that we didn't even know. And a couple people whose cholesterols were really out of whack. So we all did the clean eating. Everybody was very supportive of the patients, and everybody stuck with it. I'd already kind of been doing it for 2 months, so it was no big deal for me. But we get through it, and everybody feels great. Have them come back in and get their lab drawn. And when we looked at the ones that were pre-diabetic that had stayed on the whole 30-day program and done what they really should have probably 80% of the time, they were all normal again. So they weren't pre-diabetic anymore.
Wow.
And 80% of the people who had cholesterol levels that were in the 250 range, they all dropped 70 to 80 points. Wow. Which I'm like, holy cow, how can you drop 70 to 80 points? But they did. They all dropped back into the 170s and 180s. But even the people that had what we would consider to be normal cholesterol levels, 80% of us dropped 20 to 80 points. So it didn't even matter if our cholesterol was low. We still dropped, 20 points. One girl went from 160 down to 110 on her cholesterol. Granted, she's only 22, but we tell her she hasn't been alive long enough to get any hardening of the arteries. But then I went back and looked at the hemoglobin A1Cs to see even if the person was not pre-diabetic. So if they weren't collecting sugar on their hemoglobin, because that's where your hemoglobin A1C gives you a 3-month reading of what your blood sugar's been. So if these people that were pre-diabetic with 1 month of clean eating, that's 1 out of 3 months, and it was back to normal. So the rest of us having had normal hemoglobin A1Cs, everybody dropped between 0.1 and 0.4 points off of that. So, even if you were healthy, we weren't really healthy, I think, as we thought. Mm-hmm. So now everybody's really having an interesting time at work because they find that if they try and eat something that is synthetic or has gluten in it or has, a heavy fat load or a heavy sugar load, they get sick. And they just kind of all, move back to that clean eating and the vegan protein. And it's been quite a life-changing event. And we now have patients ongoing in this study. So we'll be doing this every time somebody comes in. We'll draw their labs, get them started, and check them afterwards. And I think, like you, most of us are going to do it again in January.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm so happy that this clean eating plan found you and your patients.
Me too.
Oh my gosh.
I keep telling Stacy, I'm not mad at you that you've been doing this for 2 years, but dang, I wish I'd paid attention 2 years ago when you talked about it.
Oh my gosh, I love that you say that.
Yes, you've been doing it 2 years. I'm like, if you'd only told me 2 years ago.
I know,
it's
right?
Good.
So what are your thoughts on, because this is new for me, I've seen like 50% of my social media following talking about the keto diet and getting their bodies in ketosis, and I've seen wild results with that as well. And then I watched some videos on it and learned that, people can be eating pork rinds and bacon and cheese and these high fat diets and these low carb plans, but there's no really specification around what the high fats can be. And to me, I'm not a, necessarily a nutritionist or a doctor, but, hearing pork rinds, cheeses, and bacon can't be long-term healthy. So what's your thoughts on that?
Right. Doesn't sound like it's a very good thing to do, just looking at the basis of it. Your body is always performing ketosis. That's just a normal metabolic function of taking a molecule and breaking it down into the sugar molecule that you need. And if you have to pull that energy from a fat, then you get a byproduct of a ketone. So then the ketone level rises in your bloodstream. And actually this happens a lot in diabetic patients, especially type 1 diabetic patients. They have no insulin that works. And if they get a high fat load or a time when they don't have any glucose that's actually being absorbed because the insulin's not right, they'll end up breaking down fat, and they'll actually develop ketoacidosis, which is a life-threatening level of ketones in their system. And what it does is it just kind of kills their kidneys. Wow. So, getting into ketosis is just a normal thing that we do. If we haven't had enough energy coming in, you break fat down. But it would really break down a lot of fat for these people, because what they've really done is they've just eliminated their gluten and they've eliminated their large carbohydrate load. So they're moving to actually where they're bringing in a little more protein and not as much complex sugars. So they do lose weight quickly, but at the same time, they're putting a lot of ketones in their system. And if they're not really careful with it, they can get the level of ketones to the point where they'll be in ketoacidosis and actually do damage to their kidneys. Okay. We see the same type of thing happen with people who do CrossFit and do it just really to such extremes that they actually are breaking down muscle when they're doing CrossFit because they're working so hard. And the myoglobin that they break down ends up in their bloodstream and they'll end up in the ER because their urine starts turning dark colors and it freaks them out, but they're actually damaging their muscles. So it's the same type of, situation in terms of what they're putting into their bloodstream.
Wow. Okay. That was really helpful. Really helpful to know. Thank you. So you've had these great results. What do you think is, what's something unique about this plan? Because there's a lot of things out there. I mean, I just mentioned one, the keto diet, but what makes this plan that you were introduced to that's, happens to be aligned to a brand called Arbonne that makes Swiss vegan products? What makes this one unique, and why do you think it's working so well?
Well, I think for one thing, the protein being vegan based is much easier to absorb. And if you look at the proteins that you find at GNC or the grocery store, Walmart, wherever, those are all whey based, which is dairy based. And I think we've come to understand that there's probably at least half of us that actually have some sort of dairy intolerance, which that means your whey based protein is harder to absorb. So the vegan based protein is just so easy to absorb and gives you such sustained energy, but also keeps your blood sugar so level and steady that you don't even realize that maybe you're taking in less calories. And then they've coupled that with these supplements that when you read the labels on them, you can actually identify plants, you can identify herbs, spices, there's vitamins and minerals. You don't find any weird chemical names you can't really pronounce. They're all scientific plant names sometimes, but since it's completely botanical and safe in the sense that they haven't thrown in genetically modified foods, they haven't thrown anything synthetic, the colors and flavors are all natural. I think that combination is just a win-win all the way around.
Can you share something around the whole dairy thing? You mentioned that half of the population or a lot of folks are dairy intolerant. I've watched a lot of videos and want to make sure that what I'm communicating is correct. Is there a truth to the fact that our bodies stop producing an enzyme that breaks down the sugar in milk after infancy stages? What do you think most people are, intolerant for?
Yeah, I think it really does. And you see certain populations that are able to continue to eat dairy, but since Americans have become such a melting pot of different populations, I think there's a lot of us that may have some heritage that we know that's related to those dairy-based countries, so to speak. But there's a lot of countries that they just don't have the genetic makeup to continue to use a milk-based product, especially when it's from a cow. And then you have to look at the fact that the cow milk that we're getting has also been genetically modified in a way in the sense that the cows that are producing that milk are actually sick, and they have to be given antibiotics to keep producing the massive amounts that they make. Mm-hmm. So if you went back to where you were milking your own cow, you might be a lot better off. Of course, you would have no time to do that. But I mean, think about trying to keep up with the volume of milk that we supply. And all those cows are being so pumped. I mean, anybody that's breast pumped knows what I'm talking about. You can only pump so much milk. And, they give them a different shot to help them produce more milk. And then what are you doing? You're pulling things out of their system and they get sick. Then you have to shoot them with antibiotics, and all of it ends up in the milk. So, yeah, I think it all kind of goes back to, is it really coming from cows, or is it just an overstimulation of an animal that's producing milk that now we've really, added a bunch more stuff to?
That's smart. Interesting. And what's another big one on our plan that folks I don't know if a lot of people know about gluten and what is gluten and wheat and understanding. I used to think getting wheat bread was the healthier option to white bread. And now I feel like avoiding wheat at all costs and being gluten-free is a healthier option. So what's your thoughts on avoiding gluten and how that affects us with this plan?
I laugh when you say that, because my children for the last, 4 years, because I went gluten-free 4 years ago, and they always make fun of me because I'll say it's evil gluten, and I'll be drinking like a glass of water, and they'll walk up and they'll go, there's gluten in that, don't you? I'm like, shut up. But really, the gluten molecule is in a lot of things. It's just kind of a binder. It's what makes your flour rise instead of being flatbread like it used to be in the old days. That big fluffy cake from Pillsbury. And again, it's just a genetically modified molecule that's grown. But a lot of us have issues with it. And of course, there's, celiac disease is the actual ones that have a test we can actually say, oh, yeah, you got a gene that says you're not going to tolerate gluten. And they're like, oh, I have celiac disease. So they've got this, special code. But that doesn't mean that myself, who tested negative for celiac disease, still doesn't have horrible reactions to it when I eat anything with gluten in it. My fibromyalgia flares so bad. I mean, I can't hardly walk, and my muscles are really sore, and then I don't sleep that night because I'm pacing and pacing and pacing. So it's just one of those really useful molecules to bind things together. It's in everything from soy sauce to your flour. Your whole wheat breads actually have a higher glycemic index than your white bread. So as a diabetic, you're actually better off eating white bread than whole wheat because of the glycemic index. But the whole wheat makes it sound like it's better, so.
Yeah, I've always thought that the wheat bread was better. Interesting. Okay, well, unless you had anything else to kind of share, tidbits, things you learned, things that you love about this plan, or, feel free to share. Otherwise, we can log off.
I have one more thing I want to tell you guys about. We have on our team, probably, we're hoping, the oldest Arbonne consultant. She's 92.
No way.
I hope maybe next year she can make it to the big conference and we can put her down in the center of the stage, because she is so amazing. She came in that week when I decided to kind of say, let's do this for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And she looked at her daughter, she goes, I want to do it. And her daughter goes, okay, Mom. And she goes, why wouldn't I want to feel better? I'm 92, but I want to feel better. And she had had chemotherapy 10 years before. And as she went through the weeks of the cleanse, essentially, she called 2 weeks in and says, I can feel my feet. And she hadn't felt her feet for 10 years because of the neuropathy from the chemotherapy. Wow. And the third week she calls it, my legs are 75% better. I'm walking better. The last week she calls, and she had seen her eye doctor, who's a retinal specialist. And she's so sneaky. She said, I didn't tell him that I thought I was seeing better. I just wanted to see what he said. So he looks in her eye. Normally, he gives her a shot in her eye to help hold off her macular degeneration. The whole thing is to try and keep it stable. And he looks in her eye and says, it's better this month. I don't think you need a shot. And she's like, I knew that. So she came in the other day and she walks through the door, 92, because she had her birthday last week, and she goes, don't I look 20 years younger? And I'm like, you've always looked 20 years younger, but she is quite a role model.
That is awesome. Well, I can't wait to meet her. That's amazing. I want to be that 92-year-old woman, that healthy and vibrant and rocking.
Really?
Well, I love it.
All right. Well, if anybody has questions, let me know.
Yeah, if anyone
they can go through or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free to comment them in the comments here. This will be recorded on both of our walls publicly, so we'd love to answer your questions and get you guys some more information. But this month, the plan is 40% off and comes with a $100 free thank you gift. We'd love to help you feel and look better. Now we're in the new year. So have a great night, guys, and thank you for watching. Thank you so much, Kris, for sharing with us. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.